take this opportunity to welcome you to today's press briefing, which is intended to highlight the fact that the President has actually signed the anti-homosexuality law. And I want to confirm to you that what was a bill is now an act of parliament called the Anti-Homosexuality Act 2023. It was assented to by the President and forwarded to Parliament. So what I have with me here is the assented to copy of the anti-homosexuality law. First of all...
So guys, that's the Speaker of Parliament in Uganda, where Musavani finally signed into law the anti-gay bill, which LGBTQ, that requires the penalty for certain aspects of homosexuality in Uganda. And as the Parliament of the Speaker of Parliament explained in this video, first, let me just give you a little bit of rundown. They already having issues since the bill is signed. Actually, they have aide stop, which Musavani did say it didn't matter him. They are revoking visas for all member of Parliament, even the one that's speaking currently, the Speaker of the Parliament. He already have his visa revoked, and he's saying for all Ugandans, if you have businesses in the States or those places, they're gonna, and especially the parliamentarians, you have to try get the company out of the States and back into Uganda and take your money out of the banks, because they're gonna retaliate. But in this video, he's laying out and he's explaining every single point in the bill. I think it's like 10, and he explains every single one, what it means, and in clear language, so no one cannot misinterpret it, because he says it's been misinterpreted by the West and even some human groups, right? Some human rights groups, because he also explained in this video that citizens in America oppose the same lifestyle. So what are Americans going to do? What are they going to do to these Americans that oppose the same practice? Are they going to punish them as well as what they're doing trying to do in Uganda with revoking visas and all of this? But as he said, as I'm gonna see in the video, he's explaining he don't care. He took care less about going in the States. He have no issue going. He have no reason to go in the States. So again, we're gonna see how this plays out over time. But for now, it's a law. It's signed by Musavani, even though they were trying to bully him not to do it, and the pressure and the deliberate intervention by the West. So he's gonna explain all of this in the video. So watch the video in its entirety so you can get the grasp the full scope of what he's saying. But it's no law. Uganda outlawed life imprisonment up to death penalty for homosexuality. Continue watching the video and then let me know what you think about it in this comment section. I don't know. Boom.
I want to congratulate the people of Uganda, to congratulate Parliament of Uganda, to congratulate the Speaker of Parliament, to congratulate the President of the Republic of Uganda, and all stakeholders who have been involved in these processes. We want to particularly thank the Speaker for giving me and my colleagues a platform to present this bill before Parliament. I want to thank my colleagues on the Legal and Parliamentary Affairs Committee. I want to thank all the stakeholders, people who came to the committee to give their views. The bill was enriched by views from various stakeholders. So I want to thank them. And I think particularly you, the media, for highlighting various aspects in this bill. Now, I want to begin with make a few highlights of what this bill is about. And I say so because there has been deliberate, I call it deliberate distortion and misinformation about this bill. And now that it is an act, I, as the mover, I have an obligation to clarify and highlight various aspects in this bill. The first aspect I need to highlight is that this bill defines what we call homosexuality. And briefly it says same-sex acts. And when you read the bill, if you perform a sexual act with a person of the same sex, then you have committed the offense of homosexuality. And what is the punishment? Imprisonment for life. And what does imprisonment for life mean? It actually means imprisonment for the natural life, your natural life. So the first aspect in this bill is to define what we now call the offense of homosexuality. The second aspect relates to what we call aggravated homosexuality. And what does aggravated homosexuality mean? It basically means engaging in a sexual act with the following categories of people. Number one, a minor. Number two, a person of advanced age. And who is a person of advanced age? 75 years and above. Number three, when you commit a homosexual act with and you're a parent or guardian of a child, you have committed aggravated homosexuality. When you commit an act of homosexuality with a person who is disabled, you are taking advantage of disability. A person who is unconscious, you are a person in authority, and you are engaging in homosexual acts with those you lead. You can be an employer, and you are taking advantage of employer-employee relationships. Then you have committed what we call aggravated homosexuality. When you carry out acts of homosexuality through force or duress or undue influence, then the law defines that as aggravated homosexuality. And what is the punishment? The maximum punishment is death. So when you commit aggravated homosexuality, the law says you shall be liable to suffer death. And I want to clarify. Some time back, you saw a document by the Deputy Attorney General saying that this law creates mandatory death penalty. It is not true. What the law creates is a maximum sentence. Therefore, the courts can decide not to impose the maximum sentence of death. And again, for clarification, nowhere in our laws is it indicated that we have no death penalty. Because people want to create an impression that this is the first piece of legislation in Uganda that talks about death penalty. It is not. It is not the first, neither will it be the last. And I'll give examples. Look at murder. When you commit the offense of murder, what is the maximum sentence? It is death. Look at terrorism. Under the Anti-Terrorism Act, what is the maximum sentence? It is actually death. So, the death penalty was never outlawed because there is also that misconception. What the Constitutional Court said in the Kigula case is that it is not mandatory. So Parliament cannot create death sentence as a mandatory sentence because then you take away the latitude of the courts to exercise the discretion. So I thought I would also make that very clear to avoid the other distortion I was talking about. The other highlight in this bill creates what we call child offenders. Now, child offenders don't suffer the same penalties like adult offenders. Under this law, when a child offender, when somebody is convicted of acts of homosexuality, the maximum sentence is 3 years. 3 years. So for them, they cannot suffer death, they cannot go for imprisonment for life. The other important aspect in this law is the aspect of compensation. Again, where somebody is convicted of acts of homosexuality, the court can order for compensation to the victim. And I think this is also another development in the law, which does not exist anywhere. It's also important for us to highlight the issue of consent. under this law, consent is not a defense. You cannot, for example, argue that X, who is an adult, consented with Y. Why are you bothered? The law is saying that the fact that you have consented is in itself not a defense. So I thought that should also be highlighted. Now, there is also the aspect of confidentiality. And this aspect of confidentiality under the law is what some people are confusing with undermining media freedom. And I'll talk about that later. What does the clause on confidentiality say? That the media or anybody is not supposed to publish the identity of a victim without their consent. And is it unique to this piece of legislation? No. So the media or anybody in public space, the law criminalizes anything to do with disclosing, publishing the identity of a victim without his or her consent or without authorization of the court. That is what Clause 7 of this bill, now Act, is talking about. The other aspect, which is a subject of distortion, relates to premises. Premises. Now, what does the law say on premises? The law says, if you knowingly, and I want us to be very clear, if you knowingly avail or make available your premises for acts of homosexuality, you commit an offense under this act. So the operational word here is knowingly. Now the question is, how do I get to know? It's a question of evidence. You could be told. You could be told. If a group of people come to you and openly tell you, we are going to engage in these acts, then you have known. So if you avail the premises, then definitely you are breaching this law. Number two, you could see. You can observe. Optical observation. Then obviously circumstances. Because in law, we even talk about circumstantial evidence. So it's also important to highlight this because it is one of those things that has been a subject of distortion. So the operational word on the premises is knowingly. So I thought that should also be highlighted. Now, there is the aspect of promotion. When you look at Section 11 of this Act, it defines what we mean by promotion. Now, promotion is an offense under this law. And the law explains various incidents that amount to promotion. Knowingly advertising, knowingly publicizing, financing, and all those aspects amount to promotion. And once you engage in any of those acts that amount to promotion, then you are breaching or committing an offense. Now, if you are a legal entity, you are a media organization that is carrying out the promotion, you are a non-government organization that is carrying out the promotion, then you will be fined. And the law talks about 50,000 currency points. And the currency point, as you are aware, is 20,000 shillings. So, you need to understand where you draw the line. Aspects of promotion are, in effect, outlawed under this law. Then there's also the other aspect of failure to report acts of homosexuality. Now, failure to report acts of homosexuality is limited to two incidents. One, if you get to know that a child has been a victim of homosexuality and you don't report, or if you get to know that a vulnerable person has been a victim of homosexuality and you don't report, you commit an offense. So failure to report is only limited to two categories of people, where a child is a victim or where a vulnerable person is a victim. And again, the law explains who a vulnerable person is. And the law also mentions who a child is. So I thought it would be important for us to understand that. Now, are these provisions in this law unique to this law? No. I have already explained that under the Anti-Terrorism Act in Uganda, there is death penalty. Under the Penal Code Act, there is death penalty. So is this anti-homosexuality law bringing a new form of penalty? No. It has been there, it will be there. Number two, on the aspect of disclosure, because you see, somebody was on TV this morning and talking about criminalizing the media and the media. Understand it from this context. There is none of your media houses that can promote terrorism. None of you. And I want anybody to say, for us, we are free to promote terrorism. Because it is an offense. So once an act has been described as an offense, you lose the freedom to promote it. And that's basic criminal law. It's basic criminal law. You cannot, for example, run adverts calling upon people to engage in theft. Why? Because theft is a crime. You cannot engage in acts calling on people to engage in murder. Why? Because murder is a crime. So once Parliament designates an act as a crime, you lose the freedom to promote it. I think it's also important to put that into context. Finally, has the penal code been touched? Because again, there is some pedestrian pastor whom I saw on TV this morning, very pedestrian. Section 145 of the Penal Code Act is intact, very intact. It is not in any way related to this law because they deal with different things. Because this pedestrian pastor was saying, once this law, you will go to court, it will be challenged, and even if it is challenged, the Penal Code Act is intact. So I thought I would also put that into context for people to understand. Now, having said that, what then is the way forward? Now, let me first begin with the consequences of these actions. Number one, as I've highlighted in various fora, our colleagues in the Western world have indicated and actually actualized their threats. Visas have been cancelled. As I speak now, the speaker's visas have been cancelled for America the other day, and this is also confirmed. This is email from U.S. Embassy. And dear Madam Speaker, the United States government has revoked your current visas on information that came available after your last issuance. As of May 12, 2023, you don't possess a valid travel visa to the U.S., though you are welcome to apply again. Please forward your passport to the embassy through Ministry of Finance so that we can make necessary modifications to your visas. I think they were looking for my visa for the US, they didn't find it. So the first victim is the speaker. And I understand even the UK government is doing the same. Now, first of all, you will cancel all our visas. And by the way, you are right. For me, I have no problem with the way a country manages their affairs. If in their wisdom and democracy, they don't want us in their countries, it is their right. And I don't want anybody to blame America or UK for cancelling visas for this time. It is their right. And me, I will not complain. I will not begrudge any embassy for cancelling anybody's visas. So what that means is that my only problem with these people is single picking. This law here was signed by the President of the Republic of Uganda. May I invite America, Canada, Britain, the entire European Union, to also cancel the visas of Mr. Musavani. May I also invite them to cancel visas of all MPs except two. Except two. Let all MPs' visas be cancelled. Let there be a travel ban, not only on Vasalirwa and Anita Among, Right Honorable. Let all of us be subjected. In fact, let all Ugandans be denied visas to America, Canada, and the European Union. Let all Ugandans. Why? Because this has been the most bipartisan bill in the history of this country. The most bipartisan. So why pick out Basalirwa? Why pick out Speaker Anita Amongo? Why? Cancel all our visas. But is this shocking? No. It was actually expected. I personally spoke to the Honorable Bahati. Honorable Bahati told me that after he had championed this bill in the previous parliament, he could not even get space where to sleep in the US. Booking space, a hotel to sleep, was a challenge. So the first consequence is that people with American visas and the European Union and the others, their visas either will be cancelled or have been cancelled. And that means don't waste your time applying for a visa to any of those countries. I cannot, for example, apply for a visa to the US. Fortunately, I was last in the US in 2009. I had not even become MP. I have never gone back. So this is a call to the MPs and all Ugandans that expect travel bans, expect visa restrictions. But my challenge to the Western world is that don't single out individuals. Do it to all of us. Then we will know that you are fair. Number two, I was speaking to my colleagues in Ghana. In Ghana, they've even gone ahead to threaten freezing accounts. Freezing accounts. And slapping bans on international banking institutions that partner with the US banks and other financial institutions. So if you have monies on your account and you have a salary, remove it. Remove it. Because you are likely to be a victim. Number three, aid cuts and controls. That they have mentioned. They are going to cut aid in Uganda, and perhaps that is likely to affect many aspects of our budgets. Either they will be completely cut or they will be restricted. That is also another probable consequence. Finally, jamming communication systems is another consequence. I told you how advocates of these acts have already written to Twitter and these others to have me deregistered. And it's with now passing of this law, they now have a stronger case. So what is likely to happen is that some of us will go back to the traditional mode of communication. If I want you, I have to look for you physically because of this. Now, what is my advice to the country? First of all, I want to advise as follows. On the side of government, let us now consider looking for development partners. And I am ready to champion the cause of going to the Arab world to look for donor support. The Arab world, we will go to Saudi Arabia, we will go to Kuwait, we will go to Qatar, we will go to UAE, and this deficit, which will be occasioned by these cuts, can easily be replaced. So let's re-engage. If we've not been thinking about the Middle East, and particularly the Arab world, where they respect morals and values, let us go there. And I want to invite government to seriously consider us going to the Arab world for donor support. Number two, to advise my colleagues with families and businesses to reconsider shifting them, because they are likely to be victims. So if you have families in the UK, in the European Union, in the US, in Canada, this is the time to reconsider shifting them. Because time will come when you will no longer have visas. You will not go to visit them. You will not go to check on your businesses. So those who have them, this is really the time to consider seriously relocating them. Number three, frugality. Frugality. Now that aid has been cut or is going to be cut, it is important that we are frugal. When you look at these budgets of ours that we have just passed, and these bogus allocations to State House, President's office, these convoys we are having, the big cars, the fuel gasolers, it is now time that we become frugal. So that monies that could be spent on unnecessary aspects or sectors is redirected to go to health, to go to education, and other sectors that have been funded by the Western world. And I'm very sure if we adopt frugality, we will have monies available to meet the deficits that would have been occasioned by these budgetary cuts. And I only hope and pray that our colleagues in government take that aspect. Finally, on the way forward, to call upon the President, the Speaker of Parliament, the MPs to stand our ground. We have no choice but to stand our ground. Otherwise, if we don't stand our ground, this is what is going to happen. Next time, they will bring another condition on our laws. Don't pass this law. If you do so, then X, Y, and Z is likely to happen. So if we don't stand our ground as a country, as a people, as a community, then we will completely have seceded our sovereignty and independence as a country. I want to advise our colleagues, especially in the Western world, that let's respect each other. We could have taken on a path of pretense. You imagine a situation where we say, please, for the sake of aid, let's sign this bill. And we pretend as if we like it, when deep inside our hearts, it's not really what we want. But we have chosen not to do so. And I'm trying to seek appointments with the diplomats in this country. I want to ask them, how do they treat their own people? Because it is actually not true that everybody in the Western world supports homosexuality. It is not true. I am aware, for example, in America, annually, the states seek to pass legislation to outlaw homosexuality. They are only defeated at the level of the federal government in Washington. I know it. So what happens to their own citizens who are opposed to this? What happens to them? What happens to them? So I think the aspect of mutual respect is really needed, and we should really be taking that stand. So colleagues, I thought I would make those highlights as we celebrate today, which as far as I'm concerned is a very important day in the history of legislation in this country. I thank you.